I asked Chase to come on and for a few
Let's
minutes to
do it.
talk about slaughterhouse banning, and so let's ask him about that. He might have a hot take on the Trump thing too, but let's try to stick to the slaughterhouse ban. So, just as a preamble, Chip and I were talking about what a slaughterhouse ban would even look like. How would that even work? And Chase is one of those people who always puts like ban slaughter on all of his. He always
That's
says
yeah.
that on his like any comment you see from him is always just like ban slaughter, and I love it. But it does beg the question. So I thought it would be kind of cool to have him on here since he's clearly someone who really cares about the actual banning of slaughter. And of course, my big thing has always just been banning breeding, which I think slaughter would have to follow. So yeah, ban meat. But how would you ban meat? They didn't use a forklift for sure. They did not use a forklift. They definitely look. I worked in restaurants for a long time, and there's never a shortage of labor. You've got 4 or 5 people standing around early in the morning to take 20 minutes to move this damn statue. That's probably what they did. Yeah, they probably broke it free and then moved it over. Chase is based. Chase is based. Well, it's Chase Avier rhymes with bad behavior. Here he comes. Hey, how are you?
What's happening?
What's up? Have you been doing lots of bad behavior lately, Mr. Avier?
Oh yeah, that's my style.
Yeah.
I live in this tiny little Trump town, a little hunting town with slaughter trucks passing all the time.
Mhm.
But so there's no real place where there's foot traffic to talk to people and interview them or do any kind of protesting or anything really, because everybody knows your name and stuff in this tiny town. And so one thing I do though is I stand on the sidewalk of the main street and just let the traffic pass me by as I'm holding up my signs that say things like "love animals, don't eat them," or "watch Dairy is Scary" on YouTube and things like that. So I'm doing that and a lot of online activism.
I love
Do you
that
get
so much.
honks? Do you get honks or shit or standing on the side of the road?
Yeah, sometimes I get a honk in support or a thumbs up or a wave. I actually had one person pull over and talk to me, and she says she used to be plant-based, but now she's not. And she sat there and like politely debated with me for a good half hour on the side of the street while other people are driving by, and somebody blew an air horn as they passed by, all and somebody else just yells out, "I love my meat," and all this, but so I actually had a honk of support from a slaughter truck driver, which was strange, but
weird. Well, you got to take it where you can, I suppose. I mean, I'm sure that you get your fair share of middle fingers on that road as well, huh? So, when we talk about like living in a slaughter town and places where this is happening, right? Like, how would a ban even work, and what could we do to move it along? I suppose, but I guess, what in your view, what does that mean? Like, we're gonna ban slaughter.
Sure. So first of all, I don't think it'll happen anytime soon in a town like where I live. But it'll most likely happen kind of like how we banned fur in California. I think might be a good template where California is a more progressive state, and it started in 2011. A small group of activists approached their local city council or whatever, their legislatures, with a bill to ban slaughterhouses, or I'm sorry, not slaughterhouses, but the sale of fur. And
Right.
And there were enough animal lovers on the politician side of things that they agreed with it, and they banned the sale of fur in West Hollywood, right? And that was already a small progressive town that had a history of supporting gay rights and things like this. So and then several years later, I think in 2018, a small group of activists approached the politicians in Berkeley, California, which is another small progressive city known for a lot of progressive movements and like the free speech movement and things like this.
Free speech movement. Yeah, we had Mario Savio's speech on Friday. We were watching it. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I saw that. And the politicians, they agreed and they banned fur in California on the basis of it being animal cruelty committed, simply for needless pleasure, a vanity statement. And especially it doesn't get that cold in California. So this is different than, trying to ban fur in a place where, fur is more popular. And also, just to interrupt that flow, there is a difference between banning fur and banning meat or banning slaughter in general, because most people aren't wearing fur, whereas most people are eating meat, but nevertheless, so it started in West Hollywood, then went to Berkeley, California, and then we took it to San Francisco, and I helped go to lobby politicians. We even went to, it was just like a handful of us, maybe 10 of us, but, we went even to Democrat and Republican politicians and said, hey, this isn't a political issue, like this isn't a partisan issue, a left or right thing as much as it is, because we're a nation of animal lovers, and I'm sure you're against animal cruelty. And I played a video for this Republican politician in his office of a fox who was a rescued fox who was playing in a bedroom, like chasing a ball. And the guy was like, oh, that's so cute. He's just like a dog, And I was like, yeah, exactly. And now look at this, right? And I showed him a picture of a fox who was in a fur farm that was, in a cage, who had half of his arm chewed off because he was, losing his mind in this fur farm and trying to, get out and like get some stimulation and
any stimulation they can, they'll self-mutilate. I mean, this is why they cut the beaks off of birds in the egg-laying racket.
Yeah, or it might have been an infection that wasn't treated, because that costs veterinary money, and they don't want to waste money on that because this is a business and these are just products to them, But anyway, so going from West Hollywood to Berkeley to then a big city of San Francisco, right? That's a metropolitan area with a big tourist attraction, right? And lots of fur retailers. There was actually $40 million per year in fur sales in California entirely. But in San Francisco was a big portion of that because they got Macy's and, Bloomingdale's and all this stuff. But we banned it, right? There was enough politicians who agreed and we banned it. And then Los Angeles was next, and that's another giant city, and we banned it there too because they got to keep up with the times, and most people are against animal cruelty, and fur is a dying industry. There's a lot of fur retailers, or fashion designers like Marc Jacobs or whatever, and Calvin Klein and stuff. Dozens of them that have dropped fur sales recently because they keep getting protested against.
Max Mara's next.
There you go. And shout out to Robert Banks and PETA and everybody else who's doing a great job at disrupting fur sales, So then after we got Los Angeles on board, in addition to San Francisco and stuff, we took it as a bill to the governor of the state of California, Governor Newsom, Gavin Newsom, and he signed it, and we banned fur in California. And there you go. So what this specifically means is it was banning the sale of fur and
import
of new fur. Right. So they can still sell used fur that they still had like on their shelves and stuff, and it gave them like 3 years to implement this law.
Completely phase it out, right?
To phase it out, right?
Yeah.
Which as total animal liberationists as we are, we want what the animals deserve, which is total rights right away. But the legal and when we're doing our outreach, that's understandable. I think a person can go vegan overnight, kind of thing.
Of course.
If they're properly educated and motivated, if they have all the resources and stuff, if it clicks, then there you go. But with legal changes,
legislation is different, right? Legislation by nature happens more slowly, and that's kind of baked into the cake of governance. Like, we don't want shit changing that quickly in the government because we end up losing everything sometimes because you change things too much. So you have to do it slowly. That's part of what legislation looks like. But okay, so it sounds like we have a roadmap because of the way fur happened in California. Like we went to the municipalities, that we kind of graduated up to Sacramento, that became a statewide thing. And it seems like glue traps might be next. I think that that's really exciting because glue traps, West Hollywood started, Berkeley did anti-glue trap legislation. They're passing glue trap legislation all over California. I would be surprised if within the next couple years it isn't a statewide ban. But this is different from slaughter. Like, I don't see people banning glue traps and then having a black market for glue traps. You know, I don't see people like crossing state lines in order to get their glue traps or or even fur. Go ahead, Chip.
Also, I'm curious, like, because when you say ban slaughter, I'm very curious about it because, right, like one is, as you say, you ban a product, and the other you ban an action, and I'm like, are we like, is it the implication that we ban the slaughter, or do we ban slaughterhouses, or that's I'm a bit confused about it, how that might work, and how we could even gather enough support from people to do that, because if we ban slaughter, obviously that would mean no animal products would be made in that state, maybe just imported or something, but still it's
that's a good point, Chase. Chip, and then Chase, exactly. So it looks like someone's already kind of 40-year-old vegan's also asking, like, so why don't you tell us what's going on in Denver, and to answer Chip's question.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue. So in Denver, Colorado, Natalie Fulton and friends are, she's a YouTuber, a vegan YouTuber. You should check out Natalie Fulton.
Friend of the channel. She's here a lot. She's also part of Pro Animal Future, right?
Yeah, and a handful of other activists or more are doing some great work with a group called Pro Animal Future, and I recommend everybody check out Pro Animal Future on social media. Instagram, especially, I think, is their main platform right now, to the best of my knowledge. So Pro Animal Future is trying to ban slaughterhouses and fur farms, or fur sales, I think. So fur sales and slaughterhouses, but that doesn't mean it excludes meat. So meat would not be banned, but slaughterhouses would be banned. And there's only one slaughterhouse in Denver, but they kill 500,000 lambs per year.
It's like the second or third largest lamb slaughterhouse in America, I think. There's only one in Denver, but it happens to be a big one, and they happen to kill animals that most of their voter base they're not actually consuming.
And a lot of people aren't okay with killing baby animals, and that's what lambs are.
They also are a horrible polluter, tons of EPA violations, which I think helps the
Is the goal
so go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, go on. No, go on.
Well, yeah, so Pro Animal Future is kind of hitting it from a multi-pronged approach, where they're talking about the animal rights aspect, they're talking about the environmental impact, they're talking about the hey, Natalie Fulton's watching, nice. And they're talking about the negative impact that slaughterhouse work has on the workers themselves, psychologically and things like that. And so I think that's a wise approach. And they might also, I think they're even also talking about the negative health effects of eating animal products. So if you look at their website, Pro Animal Future, and so yeah, we might want to, I don't know if you have a screen share, you might want to show that, Sky, for a minute or something, just to get a glimpse of what they're doing and to encourage people to visit the site and stuff and get involved, because you can make donations, or you can, use what they're doing as a template in your city, if you think you can make it happen. But the idea here is that because, banning meat would be, or banning animal flesh, or however you want to put it, would be a really big ask, like that, you probably wouldn't get support from most people if you ask them, do you want to ban meat? But if you say, do you want to ban slaughterhouses? It instantly brings a violent image to your head, right? Slaughterhouses and blood on the floor, and suffering animals and stuff comes to your mind. And even if you haven't seen the footage, it's like slaughterhouses is not a pretty word, right? But if you say ban meat, then people instantly think of food and their choices and their rights and stuff like that. So a lot of it is in the framing of the question, and they've done some I don't know how many polls or how rigorous these polls were or anything, but on the Pro Animal Future website, they're talking about how something like 50% of people, when asked, do you agree with a ban on slaughterhouses, agree.
Yeah, but there. So Natalie's going to come on right now and talk about kind of the tactic that we're using, the strategies we're using to try to get this actual into. So, all right, let's do this. We'll all be together 4-way.
What's up? Hey, how's it going? Good to see you.
4 cylinders all firing. So Natalie. So now we've got a basic overview about kind of how it would happen on the macro, but on the ground floor, like what's happening now? I was there. I got signatures. But could you explain a little bit what is happening, boots on the ground, to try to start this off?
Yeah. And specifically, Natalie, if you can, and I can help if you need, because I don't know, I'm still learning, but the difference between getting a bill passed versus getting a new measure on the ballot.
Yeah, totally. So completely different processes there. But thank you, Sky, for getting signatures. I didn't realize you were involved in that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I got like almost 50 for the fur and at the farmers market in Denver. I was pretty proud.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I wasn't here for that part. So thank you for doing some of the work for us. And yeah, I've been out here for the last 3 weeks or so. I've been working on the campaign since March. And I'm not sure how much you guys have already said about it or how far to kind of go into that.
We kind of talked about how it works as far as in the comparison of the fur ban that we did that we successfully executed in California with the help of all sorts of different organizations and a similar kind of strategy. And so kind of again, at the macro, we kind of understand how it would take place and become a ban. But I guess what I want to know are the two things. One is how the boots on the ground are actually getting these things done. And the second part is maybe the aftermath, how it will look with an actual slaughter ban.
I'm very curious about the second part also. I actually wrote down some questions. So.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. And yeah, I think, Chip, I haven't talked to you in forever, so it's really good to
been a while.
To have a chat. That's awesome. Sure. So as far as, is it similar to California? Yes, that's part of why we wanted to run ballot measures, is because they have been successful in the past. When you engage with the public at the level of dietary change, they don't really come out as super pro-animal, as I'm sure we've all experienced during vegan outreach. But when they are in this civic mindset, this voter mindset, a lot of times they vote for pro-animal policies. We saw this with Prop 12. We got a similar fur ban in Boulder, Colorado, very close to Denver. So we're fairly confident that we can pass this fur ban. The slaughter ban is a little more controversial. So as far as what it looks like right now, there have been some developments recently that are not great, but we still have a pretty good shot. The main thing is that the meat industry has already raised $500,000 against our campaign. And they have hired this PR firm that has successfully worked against ballot initiatives in the past. They claim they have an 80% success rate. Whether or not that's true, we're not sure. So they definitely have significant advantages in terms of not just finances, but advertising and city council influence. We really didn't spend much time talking to the city council members because that's not really how people vote anyway, but they did, and that will be an advantage for them. We have a lot more advantage in terms of people power. Every time I go out and talk to voters about it, most people are very supportive. Even if they eat meat, they do want the world to be better for animals. And I frame it as, I want us to completely move away from animals. I understand not everyone agrees with that. So we're trying to find something that works for both of us. And I think that's good because I don't want to pretend that some animal slaughter is okay, right? But in terms of what this would look like if it gets passed, is it would shut down the largest lamb slaughterhouse in the country, which would be huge. It's estimated that about 15 to 20% of lambs slaughtered in the US go through this slaughterhouse. And it would cause a major disruption. They are unlikely to reopen because it's really expensive to build slaughterhouses now. Most of the slaughterhouse equipment in the US was built, 40 years ago,
Yeah,
it was
it's like
much cheaper. Yeah. And now that equipment is so expensive. It's also harder to get the permits to open a slaughterhouse because people don't want them in their neighborhoods. So
and
this
also
would
the
have-
industries themselves screwed themselves because the big industries wanted all of these permits and wanted all of these extra things so that the little slaughterhouse couldn't compete. So it's
Oh,
almost
wow.
like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I remember 20 years ago, we were all talking about local slaughterhouses. It was like, how come local slaughterhouses are all shutting down? Well, the reason why all the ones that people talk about, like their Uncle Joe's slaughterhouse, the reason why they're all gone is because these permits, because these new machines that are now mandatory, because of these industry standards that were set by the industry itself to put out the little guy, are now going to be foisted upon their own petard. They're going to stab themselves
I
with
love
their own
that.
dagger. Yeah,
That feels good.
yeah, it does.
That's real good. Yeah.
So
is the
go ahead.
Can I? Yeah. So is the point like, as far as I understand, like when you say ban slaughterhouses, what will happen is that, obviously nobody wants them in that, as you said, like that's everywhere. Like even here in Europe, nobody wants a slaughterhouse close to their house or whatever. So what will happen is that, as they will have difficulty opening them up, I'm suspecting prices will go up, demand will go down for all of these meat, and people will start shifting to other perspectives, or will they have to find a solution for this? Will they have to maybe import it from somewhere else? Like what is the outcome? I don't want to say for the consumer, because I'm not worried about the consumer, but I am worried about the idea of the demand of it. Will this actually help drive demand down, or will it just make it a little bit more harder for them?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, especially in the context of the US. Is probably different from the Netherlands. The sheep industry is super vulnerable here. The average American eats less than 2 pounds of sheep per year. So it's not as if there's this high demand. The other thing is it will drive the price up, but sheep is already like a premium meat. It's one of the most expensive. So it's not going to affect other meat prices, unfortunately. But we do see this as having a major disruption for the lamb industry. As far as whether they would import more, that's certainly possible, especially from like New Zealand. So that's one of the things the opposition campaign is leaning into. They're like, oh, people want local meat. This is bad for the environment. At the end of the day, less than 1% of emissions from sheep come from transportation. If you want to help the environment, you shouldn't be eating it at all. So it's ridiculous that they're framing it this way. The other thing is that while these lambs are slaughtered in Denver, they're trucked from anywhere west of Iowa. I know you may not be as familiar with the US, but that's far away. And they're by no means local animals like they're trying to portray themselves.
Right, it's all still live transport, and even like New Zealand and these, they're banning. There's a major move to ban live transport across state lines, but especially across oceans. So the fact that they're both going together, I think, is why the lamb slaughter industry is on its knees, and we've got to put the final nails in the coffin, so to speak.
Totally.
And more. Oh, go ahead, Chip.
I was going to ask also because, Chase, if you want to mention on this, I have a slightly different question, so you can expand on this.
Well, I mean, mine's a bit of a diversion as well, but looking at it more broadly, more generally speaking, like if we were to successfully ban slaughterhouses, or this one slaughterhouse in Denver, that would help stigmatize slaughterhouses. Like by then we would have historical precedent of saying, hey, we've already banned slaughterhouses in Denver. What do you think about banning them here? Do you agree with the and just like what happened, I think, with banning smoking cigarettes inside, helps stigmatize smoking, and the fur ban in California helps stigmatize. So I just think that's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And that's certainly part of like our long-term vision. I mean, if you had talked to people about smoking in the 1960s and said, oh, you need to stop smoking, it's bad, like no one would have listened to you, right? But when they started doing this legislation saying, oh, don't smoke near kids, don't smoke in schools, then society started to shift along with it. So that's absolutely one of the main things we want to accomplish with this campaign. Once people see the social proof of shutting down slaughter and realizing, hey, other people want the world to be better for animals too, that will really move society forward.
Let's take a question from the chat real fast. The would city council meetings be more effective than with signatures from petitions, or would it do any good to plant seeds at a town hall? Like they have these open mics at town halls and city council meetings. What do you think about that? What do you think about that as mixing that in with the tactics?
Sure. So I think they did this really effectively in Florida. There was going to be a slaughterhouse that was going to be built. And because they went to so many city council meetings, I'm not sure what else they did there, but they really did prevent it from being built, which is absolutely amazing. So the problem with ballot initiatives is that only about half of states have them. So if your state doesn't have ballot initiatives, unfortunately, you can't run them. So other tactics like this are absolutely useful. I don't see the city council necessarily agreeing with a lot of it, especially because most of them are in bed with the meat industry. The meat lobby is everywhere. It's not just at the national level, it's at the local level too. So I could see there being a lot more resistance, which is another reason we chose to go through citizen initiatives, because it's not the government forcing people to do anything. It's voters coming together to vote for the future they want to create.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I did a little bit of research on it. It looks like the difference between a bill, and this is in the US, but the difference between a bill and a new ballot initiative, they can both help something become law, but a bill is introduced and passed basically by legislators, whereas by the politicians, whereas
written by them as well.
Written by them, but whereas a ballot initiative, which can also become a new law, can be drafted, like written by citizens, and then you get enough petitions, you get a petition and enough signatures, and then it can be introduced and voted on. And if it's voted on by enough people, just citizens, then it becomes a new law.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting in California. Just to put a little point on that, in California we've had ballot initiatives. Like famously, we did the get rid of the daylight savings time, and it is still not a law in California. Citizens did buy in, they did vote for it, and it never became law because of other bullshit that happened, and that we don't get in the weeds about that. But it's not a guarantee that it's going to become a law. The legislature still needs to enact it, but by not enacting it, they're subverting the will of the people, and that's a really bad look for legislators, because they'll be voted out. They'll be excoriated. People will get really pissed off when it doesn't happen.
Okay, and with a bill, it seems that is written and introduced and voted on by the legislators, and then goes up to the governor of the state, or if it's at a federal level, at a national level, goes to the president to be signed or vetoed. And if it's signed into law, there you go. Or if it's vetoed by the president or the governor, then it goes back to the houses after they had initially voted on it. It goes back to them, and with a supermajority, I think, of like 2/3, then they can override the president's veto.
The other thing about bills is that something like 85% of them, it's a high percentage. Don't quote me on that percentage, but it's a very, very high percentage that are actually written by lobbyists. So legislators, they're voted in. They're democratically elected, but they're not the smartest people on the sharpest knife on the shelf all the time. And they don't even have the skills necessary to write these laws, these bills. But you know who does? Lobbyists. And so a lot of times it's not, people think of lobbyists as like the people going to the legislators to try to influence them. And there is that, but you'd be surprised that usually the legislator themselves are calling the lobbyists for their expertise in writing, drafting, editing these bills. So if you don't want a lobbyist from the meat industry touching these things, then these citizen initiatives are far more, they're preferable, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And then the other thing is that, we're not the only ones doing this. There's the Sonoma County factory farming ballot initiative, which I think is great. And the meat industry is really afraid that we're starting to use this tactic. They talk about it a lot, and that's why they're raising so much money against us. So I think that whenever the industry is afraid of something we're doing, it's a good sign to lean into that. They want us to be telling people to go vegan. Like I listened to a podcast and they said, they shouldn't be running ballot initiatives. They should just encourage people to go vegan. Yeah. So if the meat industry is telling us to do that, maybe we should. do it as much.
Right. But also remember with the fur ban in California, you know, it was in California, it was a $40 million per year industry, fur sales. And it only took us, you know, a few years and like 300 activists to shut that shit down. And we didn't really have money. We just had animal lovers on our side.
Yeah. Yeah. We're always going to have more people power than they will.
I have a question. I'm sorry. I like all this legislation talk in the US. I can't relate to it a lot. So I want to go back a little bit to the whole thing. So I'm curious, like, okay, so let's say slaughterhouses are banned, but I'm assuming that because there were slaughterhouses for sheep there were also sheep farms there, close to it or in that area. Are farmers supposed to close down their farms then, or like what are the expectations to happen there, or will they do the slaughter on their own farms? Is that what might happen? Like I'm curious, like what the outcome is for the farmers also, or how they treat animals. Like,
I mean, I think that would be hard for them to do, you know, like, because a slaughterhouse is like set up industry, like, you know, with specific tools and areas for the animals to go in order to do this in a certain way, you know, to maximize profit and to, you know, not get in trouble maybe. But so I think the idea is like, if we shut down all the slaughterhouses, then the farmers will have to stop breeding because they have nowhere to send their animals, you know, sorry.
Yeah.
Their victims.
Ideally, that is what we would see, is a reduction of the herds, because if this passes, they're going to have about a year to close down the slaughterhouse. Since the sheep life cycle is, you know, 6 months, they're killed when they're 6 months. They'll have enough time to reduce their herds. But as far as if there are a lot of sheep farmers in the area, there are a lot in Colorado. There are none in Denver specifically. And yeah, I see someone in the chat says, find another job. You know, the animals are not profit. They're not objects. So we shouldn't be treating them that way, obviously. And it's easy for someone to find another job, but hard for someone.
I completely agree. Like, the only reason why I mention it is because I feel like obviously the implication of it like could have different implications on our side also, right? Like I'm not saying it as I agree, like farmers shouldn't be doing it in the first place, but like if they have a problem, if they start complaining, won't that mean also administratively and like going down the whole legislation line and the whole voting line that they will also say, well, wait a minute, it's we got to do something about this, right? Or like,
for sure. And there was this study that came out against our campaign written by Colorado State University, which is a really big ag school. And they projected that our measure would cost taxpayers $861 million. And they're using that as a scare tactic. Their numbers are ridiculous. They basically used all these multipliers that they couldn't justify, made all these assumptions. So the numbers aren't accurate, but yeah, absolutely. They're going to use this sort of line of argumentation to try to prevent our measure.
Yeah, okay.
So I think at the end of the day, a lot of these bans are generally to drive up the prices across the board, right? You ban slaughter of lambs, it drives up the slaughter price because each head now costs more to process, right? I'm gonna speak in terms that aren't friendly about animals for a second, because we're talking about processing living beings, and there's no way to say it nicely. So to process the heads of this many cattle goes up per head. So now you either have to change the animal you're breeding, which costs a lot, and now you're either going to drive up the price of now people. The consumer demand might shift to chickens and cows, but then if the demand goes up, we know that the price will also go up, right? Because you're not necessarily increasing the supply. So the supply and demand argument is something that comes into play, especially if the government starts picking up the bill, which they tend to do when farmers are having problems. But that means the taxpayer again will be the one who needs to start make noise. It puts the task back in the hands of the consumer and the citizen to see what the fuck we're going to do about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So yes, it turns into higher taxes, right? Exactly. At the end of the day, it's a tax.
But well, I don't know though, because because I think, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I'd heard, at least I didn't do solid research on it, so grain of salt, but I think I'd heard that animals in the US can be transported up to 36 hours from the farm to the slaughterhouses without food or water, of course, but so if that's the regulation limit, then if there's no slaughterhouse within 36 hours of a farm, then the farm is like kind of screwed, right? And there might also be legislation against farms becoming slaughterhouse or being slaughterhouses in essence, right? Because that's why they have to ship. That's maybe one of the reasons why they have to ship them to an actual processing facility,
Yeah, but there's laws against them slaughtering their own animals. Even places like these regenerative farms, they still have to put their pigs on trucks and take them to slaughterhouses. Places like Joel Saladin's farm, he's not allowed. Chickens are different. You're allowed to slaughter chickens on site, but you're not allowed to slaughter basically any other animal on site. And it's because of the regulations that we talked about, ones that the industry themselves implemented in order to make it illegal. Basically, they don't have the machinery, they don't have the on-site inspectors, they don't have the little office for the USDA guy, all that shit. Then they'd have to spend millions. So so that 36-hour thing, you're totally right, but again, that just means that they'll have to feed and water those animals on the way, and it's going to be prohibitively expensive without raising the prices drastically.
Right. Or maybe the company will stop selling that product and sell a plant-based meat that's identical,
or basically anything else.
That would be ideal.
Which what company are you talking about?
Or any slaughter industry, I suppose, any lamb farmer. But what generally happens, because I've known cattle farmers, and what happens generally when shit hits the fan for them, because they've had similar problems, right? So like a cattle farmer a cow cattle farmer might have the situation where 1 year corn prices are so high that they can't afford to feed all the cows that they've bought. So now they have to sell them at a lower weight when they're younger and they'll get less money from them. So their margins are hit hard. Or what they usually will do, they'll start selling off land, because a lot of these farms have land. That's something that they can turn into liquid, and they'll put them into agricultural easements sometimes to fuck with people. They'll do all sorts of little tricks, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to start selling off pieces of their land in order to stay alive. And that's okay. They need less land because they're not using it as grazing sheep. They're taking
And I guess I should say, I'm glad that Natalie with Pro Animal Future is doing this immediate work right now, because it's really cool. Even if it doesn't work the first time, getting people thinking about it in this way is really important, and it might work. You never know. And so I'm looking at this in a futuristic perspective of in the coming 5, 10, 20, 30 years. How are we going to do this type of stuff? And
I'd love to speak on that a bit more. So that's certainly something we're thinking is, we might not win. Like, there's a semi-high chance that we won't. We're not sure. And even if we lose, it is still a win, because not only have we gotten the industry to spend $500,000 against our campaign, but we're out there talking to voters all the time about how they feel about this issue. And one of the best examples I've heard of that through history is the gay rights movement. Public perception totally shifted from, like the 80s to 2010 or so. And that was when people who were running opposition campaigns against gay marriage were doing ballot initiatives. They ran ballot initiatives to ban gay marriage in 31 states, and they won 30 of them. So even though they banned gay marriage, the conversations that it created along the way completely changed public perception, even if the initial result of the ballot initiative was the wrong one, which is totally crazy. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, okay. So I want to bring on Crystal because there's been a lot of developments in the slaughterhouse world and what's going on with chickens. I know 2 million chickens were just killed for another bird flu. A lot of it is going on with bird flu and the depopulation in that part. But before we bring her on, Natalie, do you have anything like a call to action for anybody who wants to get involved in this process, or who wants to help this along, or what they can do maybe in their own municipalities?
Yeah, for sure. So as far as your own municipalities, that depends where you live. Feel free to DM me on Instagram at Natty Fulton. And if you live in a state with ballot initiatives, we may be there in the future. As for what you can do right now, probably the best thing would be to share our content, make videos about us, or donate if you have the money. All the money is used very well to reach voters. And, since the opposition has so much money, anything that we have is a huge help. So, yeah, if you want to donate, that would be awesome. And if you are an activist and you want to come to Denver in September, we are running Slaughter Free September. We are inviting activists to come from all over and help us with the campaign. We want to do like a big push. So if you feel like you could do work for us, you can work on your remote stuff during the day and then canvas for us evenings and weekends. And if you're good at talking to people, we would love to have you.
Awesome. That's really cool. All right. I want to bring on Crystal because I had some questions about, and I know she wants to ask a couple questions as well. Crystal, Heath, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey. So I wanted to bring
can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yes.
Maybe there might be a delay since I'm on my cell phone, but I just had a quick question for Natalie about the CSU study. Was that AgNext that did that study? And have you gotten public records on their communications about that? Because
I'm not. It was CSU who did it, Colorado State University.
Well, yeah, but they have this department called AgNext inside CSU that's been implicated in getting. They've gotten a lot of ag industry funding for that
like
department.
Jennifer Martin, I know, was one of the authors.
Oh, okay, good to know.
Who's Jennifer Martin?
I can't say. I'm not going to say anything right now. But that's really interesting.
No, I'm curious.
We'll talk offline.
But one thing real quick about Jennifer Martin is that she went on this radio show to talk about the study. It's kind of like a libertarian radio show in Denver and basically like tore apart our campaign. But I'm actually going on the show on Tuesday, so I'll have a chance to speak against the study, which is really exciting.
Well, I might have some facts, talking points that you could use.
Get them to me ASAP.
Wonderful. See vegan community working together. I love it.
Yeah.
So, Crystal, like, what do you think about slaughterhouse banning? Can we? What's gonna happen if we ban all the slaughterhouses? How does that work? And what are we gonna? What's the world look like then?
Well, right now, I would say people are being denied access to the type of food that aligns with their values. And we are paying for animals to be killed using highly unethical methods, whether we consume those products or not. The wealthiest companies in the world, like Cargill, Tyson, Smithfield, JBS, are making money off of us, whether we're vegan or not, whether we buy from so-called local humane farms, whether we hunt to get our meat. People are being denied access to consuming food that aligns with their values. Everybody thinks that they are purchasing products that were raised a certain way, but they're not. But even if they are like, oh, I'm abstaining from that company, you still are being forced to pay with your taxpayer dollars to support and prop up these companies, which is not right. Brings us back to avian influenza and the massive bailouts that have been given to these companies who are perpetuating diseases that might lead to the next pandemic. In Colorado right now, like there's 1.8 million birds that were killed. Likely be a ventilation shutdown. I don't have records yet on what methods are being used. I hope
the article I read I read an article about it that said it was ventilation shutdown. It said almost everyone was ventilation shutdown.
Yeah, I mean the vast majority of these large farms that are over 1 million chickens are using ventilation shutdown because that's the cheapest, easiest way to do it. And the American Veterinary Medical Association says not only is it okay, but it's an ethical veterinary procedure. Mm-hmm. And these companies are getting millions and millions of our dollars, whether we purchase their products or not, which is not right. It's not democratic.
It's absolutely insane. Like animal products would cost 2 to 3 times as much if there weren't these subsidies. But actually, I have to hop off pretty soon. Does anyone have questions before I leave that you wanted me to address, or?
I think we hit it all. I think Awesome. All right, Natalie. Thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate you.
Yes,
Bye,
y'all have a
Natalie.
great Sunday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Natalie.
Yeah, everybody be sure to follow Natalie Fulton on YouTube and Pro Animal Future on Instagram.
Navia just shared it in the chat. Crystal, so where are we going from here? Like, what's the answer? Because like sometimes I read this. I know you and I have talked so much about what's happening with these damn with ventilation shutdown and all these chickens. Where do we go from here? Is I know getting veterinarians involved. I know that's near and dear to your heart, but man, it seems like we got to do something now about this, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff we could do every day to address this issue. And right now, like my big thing is getting public records on these things, and it's super, super fun to get people's personal emails about what they're saying about and the industry and the collusion between the industry and these academic institutions and our government, the pork board, the USDA, and all of this to see how they're using our taxpayers' dollars just to prop up these industries, which is so problematic. And it gets great press. I've had really good luck at getting press about these things. I just need more help. So if anybody out there is interested in learning how to do public records requests, they're really easy. They're really fun. And I just need more people to do them and more people interested in writing press releases. Like I envision every time that there's a bird flu outbreak, animal rights people are reaching out to the media and saying, journalists, you need to ask these questions. How are these animals killed? How much is this costing us? Ask the tough questions. Don't just be like, oh, this many animals were killed and we feel so bad for the poor farmers and they need more money to help bail them out because now they're destitute, when that's not the truth. And don't worry, the meat and the milk is safe. Like that's every single story about avian influenza, and it's maddening.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Like if that's the story, then how do we change the narrative, right? And that's the goal, is to change the narrative. I love this. So if I want to get involved, you show me how to write a press release when these things go down. I write to my local news broadcasters and stuff and say, hey, these are the questions you need to ask. This is what's going on.
I think it's helpful to write it as part of a larger organization. And I think, PETA has a certain, they get a lot of press, they do a great job, but when people see, oh, PETA said that, it has a certain connotation in their mind. There's lots of different animal protection organizations. I think when Our Honor sends out a press release, it's like, oh, this is what veterinarians are saying. We take this pretty seriously, and we have a certain way that we talk about these things that doesn't trigger these are animal rights extremist things. All of our stuff is very like practical sort of, it's just like we're asking for, kind of a fiscal conservative sort of stuff like, hey, should taxpayers be funding this? And we also try to plug in, oh, by the way, animal slavery is bad and we don't have to do this.
Animal slavery is bad. And by the way, you shouldn't be paying for it through your tax. What's the governor's role? I mean, I guess that's always the question. I mean, in all of these big issues, especially in America, I think it's like there's a question. Let's take like gun control or the question of abortion and these ones that seem to divide people. And it's like, well, there's the question of whether or not you agree with the practice of abortion, but there's also the question of what the government's role should be in abortion and reproductive rights. So it's like, that's a different question. And I think that Our Honor is able to do that. It's like, okay, animal slavery is wrong. Animal exploitation is wrong. But what is the government's role in what happens to animals?
Yeah. And the meat industry has done such a good job at painting this narrative that vegans are out to try to deny you access to the food that you want. And we have to spin it, and we don't even have to spin it. We just have to tell the truth that what's actually happening is that industry is denying people access to food that aligns with their values. Most people don't want to kill animals. Most people are against slaughterhouses. They would love to be able to eat healthy food that doesn't harm anyone, but they can't do that right now.
Yeah, and I'll echo that I've had a lot of meat eaters tell me that they just lack the willpower to go vegan, but they actually agree with
Yeah.
veganism in principle, and that they would support a law banning slaughterhouses that essentially forces them to go vegan. It's strange, but there's a lot of people like that.
I think that's,
So
yeah, I
so
mean, we saw it
yeah,
with smoking, right? Smoking was the same thing.
yeah, so I think that's good. That's, reassuring to know that we don't have to get 50% or 51% of the population to go vegan in order to pass these laws. And I wish I'd asked this when Natalie was on, but Crystal, you might know, with the banning of fur in California, didn't that just stay as were those just bills that were, or did those go to the voters? Did those decisions go to the voters, or did it just stay with the politicians?
It just went through the various committees and then it was signed by the governor. So it wasn't a ballot measure. But this was something that, even made it through the ag committee. So that was, or I don't know how it made it through the ag committee, but it ended up passing.
Well, I mean, the ag committee was because they're representing agriculture in the in California, and we just don't have that many fur farms inside of California, right?
I have to actually look back on that. Maybe they sidestepped the ag committee somehow by making it just a bit, I don't know. That's an interesting point, but it didn't go to all the voters because it's very expensive to do a ballot measure. Oh my God, there's somebody behind me who's like in their
Get
bathing
naked.
suit. Anyway.
Yeah. As your poolside.
Accidentally put people on the camera.
Yeah, I mean, relying solely on my memory, the way I remember it happening. Yeah, the way I remember it happening was people in municipalities. It was like a domino effect. Like it happened in West Hollywood, like you described, Chase, and then it happened in Berkeley, and it happened, I think, in Sonoma maybe, and it happened in San Francisco, and it kept on happening in these municipalities where enough people, it looked like this is what these, and it's something that one of the things that I really think I really want to run for office one of these days at city council level, because I think that a vegan on city council is so can I think we can enact so much change, even if it's just like banning glue traps. Glue traps are fucking horrific. And imagine a statewide ban on glue traps. West Hollywood already banned them. San Francisco banned them. I would love for my town to ban them,
Banning fireworks.
Fireworks would be a good one. Banning the sale of fireworks. My town already does ban the sale of fireworks. But yeah, those are good examples of things that you can do, and you can run for city council. It doesn't cost money to run for city council. Just take some signatures. It doesn't take much. You could just hang out at your local bar and collect signatures to get on that ballot for city council.
Here in Netherlands,
getting press, it's really easy to pass or to introduce resolutions, introduce ordinances, introduce bills at the state level. You just have to talk to your representative, propose an idea, and pitch it. And pitching season's coming up, and I kind of want to do like a seminar or something on how to pitch a bill to California.
That'd be a cool little workshop to do.
It's really important. I think we need to do more of that.
That'd be amazing. I mean, how cool would it be? You could just teach me how to do it and we'll live stream it. I mean, and then maybe people can get the idea of what, teach one person it could do. Maybe we'll work something out. What were you going to say, Chip?
I was going to say here in the Netherlands, they banned in Amsterdam and in Haarlem, they banned the ads for animal products. So in Amsterdam and in Haarlem, which is a city next to Amsterdam. And I think it has a huge impact because as you're walking, as you're doing, you're never thinking about animal products ever again. And it does help out a lot. They banned it for the sake of environment, really, not the animals, which it is what it is. But that's the beauty of this, right? Like if you do decide to run for council, you can make a lot of these measures and just make it for the environment because it makes so much sense. And so many people agree with that. Like you don't even have to justify any of it, even if your agenda is to actually get people to stop exploiting animals, like
that's a wonderful, I mean, because we did it with cigarettes. I drive by an ad for bacon wrapped hot dogs every day and it makes me sick to my stomach. It pisses me off. They call it BWHD and it's a woman going, wow, with a BWHD, a bacon wrapped hot dog that they sell. And I've never seen them for sale, but it's got like they come in a package, I guess. And I'm like, why those are carcinogenic? It's worse than cigarettes. It's
Exactly.
illegal to advertise cigarettes. Why is it okay to put
Yeah.
a woman with a phallus in her face eating a bacon wrapped hot dog? What the hell, man? It's gross.
And more of us need to go to these city council meetings and bring these up and talk to our city council members. And we can introduce these things, these ordinances and resolutions without even having to run for office. Before you're even elected, you can start that relationship with your city council member and start, working on the language.
That's a good point.
Yeah, another group that everybody should follow is Plant-Based Treaty on Instagram and wherever else. But Plant-Based Treaty is doing great with Anita Krines from the Save Movement. I saw, a handful of those activists went with their Plant-Based Treaty shirts to a city council and got up behind the microphone and just explained to the politicians there, the facts of the issue and gave them a little bit of education and motivation. And you never know how far it'll go.
And now with ChatGPT, it's so easy. Just put in ChatGPT, write an ordinance or resolution for this bill, and you have a draft there. Or like you want to talk about something at the city council meeting, ask ChatGPT to write you a 2-minute statement for, to talk. So just do it,
Yeah,
I love this.
And you can ask ChatGPT even the basics of, how is a bill passed and how to get a new measure on the ballot in whatever state you're in.
Totally. And I just, while you guys were talking, I just Googled, city council meeting where I am. They're always at like 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. I remember when I lived in Virginia, it was the same thing. I was really involved in sound ordinances and things over there. And at times they ask people to stand up and talk about stuff. So if you go, it's only every couple of weeks. And if you go once a month and you take the hour, 2 hours out of your life to actually do something, they start seeing your face at these things. You become a contributing member of your community, and they start listening to you. It's amazing how that works. You build those relationships, just like Crystal said, is really important.
Yeah, and one person can do it, but also imagine if you get a couple friends or 10 friends, or imagine if you get 200 friends.
Yep, to fill city council. Yeah, it's funny. I've done a couple of city council things where, but never something. It's funny. All the city council shit I've ever done, I've never done it for the animals. It's always been for workers or property rights, sound ordinances. And you know what? I think I'd like to start doing more on the city council level for the animals. It's so easy, like you just got to show up. You just got to show up.
But it's more fun when you have a bunch of friends showing up with you. So we got to get the groups.
Yeah, make a party out of it. 7 o'clock on a 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. At 9 o'clock, go and have a couple drinks, and then
Yeah, instead of going to the movies, go to city council, film each other, like post it on social media. It's a good time.
Exactly. It's a good form of activism. Well, guys, thank you both for showing up for us and making getting the word out a little bit about these about the chickens and about the slaughterhouse and ventilation shutdown and what we're all trying to do to change the world a little bit. So I really appreciate Crystal and Chase. I hope you guys. Navia has put in everyone's socials on the in the chat, but if you aren't following Chase and Crystal, please do. And thank you so much for coming to Sunday School, guys.
Cool. Thanks for having us. Yeah, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
All right.
Yeah,
cool.
Follow me. And if you want to do public records or FOIAs, let me know. We have a chat. We have a whole system going. So
I can't.
Will help.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll get involved. I'll try to do what I can. And let's do it. All right. Awesome. Thanks, guys.